The afternoon sun hung low over the savannah waterfront, painting the river gold and bronze as it rippled gently beneath the old iron bridge. The air was thick with humidity, the kind that clung to skin and made every breath heavy. Malik wiped the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand, his palms rough from days of clutching bottles and coins. He stood by his usual spot near the pier, a cracked blue cooler full of half-melted ice and bottled water beside him. Tourists drifted by, families in floppy hats, couples holding hands, kids with sticky fingers from melting ice cream cones. They never looked twice at him. Some waved him off with polite smiles, others didn't see him at all. Malik was used to that. He had learned early that invisibility was safer than attention. At 12 years old, he had the quiet wisdom of someone who had seen too much of life's unfairness. He adjusted his tattered sneakers and called out, "Cold water, only $1." Ice cold water. His voice cracked slightly, but no one stopped. A few coins rattled in his pocket, barely enough to buy his grandmother's medicine. That thought kept him standing there, hour after hour, under the heavy sun. Then he saw her. She didn't look like anyone from this part of town, not with that white summer dress fluttering in the warm wind, or the pearl bracelet that sparkled against her wrist. She leaned over the railing at the edge of the pier, her golden hair catching the sunlight like a halo. She looked about his age, maybe a little older, and she was smiling at the water, lost in thought. Malik didn't know why he noticed her more than anyone else. Maybe it was the way she looked so free, so untouched by worry. Maybe it was because she looked like someone who had never known hunger or fear. A gust of wind swept across the river, and the girl's straw hat flew off her head, tumbling toward the water. Without thinking, she reached out for it, one quick step, then another. Malik's heart jumped. She leaned too far. "Hey," he shouted, but it was too late. The girl slipped. There was a sharp scream and a splash that broke the stillness of the afternoon. People nearby gasped but froze where they stood, unsure what to do. Malik didn't think. His body just moved. He kicked off his shoes, dropped his cooler, and ran toward the edge. The water below churned brown and dark, swallowing the ripples where she had fallen. "Hold on," he yelled as he leapt. The shock of the cold hit him like a punch. The taste of river water filled his mouth, gritty, bitter, alive with movement. He kicked downward, eyes stinging as he searched for a flash of white. There, just beneath the surface, a pale blur sinking fast. He lunged, his lungs already burning, his arms slicing through the water until his fingers brushed fabric. He grabbed hold and pulled with every bit of strength he had. She was heavier than he expected, her dress dragging like an anchor. He kicked and kicked, his chest screaming for air, his muscles aching. For a terrible second, he thought they wouldn't make it. Then they broke the surface, both coughing and gasping. "It's okay," he panted, his voice trembling. "I got you." The girl clung to him, terrified, eyes wide and wild. I can't. Just hold on to me," Malik said. "We're almost there." The pier seemed impossibly far away, but he kept going, kicking toward the shore where a few people were finally starting to run toward them. Every stroke felt like a battle, but Malik didn't stop. He could feel her heartbeat against his arm, fast and scared, but alive. When they finally reached the shallow edge, strong hands reached down to pull them both up. Malik collapsed onto the grass, chest heaving, the world spinning around him. The girl coughed up water, and began to cry, soft, trembling sobs that turned into words. "You saved me," she whispered, looking at him through wet lashes. "You really saved me." Malik blinked, still trying to catch his breath. You should be more careful," he managed to say, voice barely above a whisper. She laughed through her tears, a small, breathless sound, and brushed the wet hair from her face. "I'm Emily," she said. He nodded, too tired to respond at first. "Malik," he finally said. Around them, people were crowding closer, murmuring, taking pictures, some even clapping. But Malik didn't hear any of it. He was staring at the girl in front of him, the one he'd pulled from the water, the one who didn't belong in his world, and wondering how a single second could change everything. As sirens began to wail in the distance and the crowd parted for the approaching ambulance, Malik realized something else. For the first time in his life, everyone was looking right at him. The next morning, Malik woke to the sound of voices outside their small apartment, reporters, neighbors, people he didn't even know. His name was being whispered everywhere. His grandmother's old radio, always tuned to the local station, was buzzing with the story. A 12-year-old boy rescued a young girl from the Savannah River yesterday. The girl, identified as Emily Davenport, is the daughter of prominent businessman Charles Davenport. Malik sat up slowly, the events of the day before flooding back in vivid flashes, the splash, the struggle, Emily's trembling voice saying, "You saved me." His clothes were still damp where they hung by the window, and his muscles ached as if he had fought the river itself. His grandmother shuffled in from the kitchen, her face a mix of pride and worry. "Baby, you're on the news," she said softly, holding up a wrinkled newspaper. His picture, wide-eyed, wet, and stunned, filled the front page. "They calling you a hero." He didn't feel like one. Heroes didn't wake up in a tiny one-room apartment with a leaking ceiling and a half-empty fridge. Heroes didn't have to count coins to buy medicine. He looked down at his hands, scraped and swollen from gripping the pier, and just shook his head. "I didn't do it to be famous, Grandma," he murmured. "I just couldn't let her drown." "I know, baby," she said, brushing his cheek. "That's what makes you one." By afternoon, a black SUV pulled up outside their building, so shiny it looked out of place among the cracked sidewalks and peeling paint. Two men in suits stepped out first, scanning the area, and then a tall man followed, sharply dressed, silver hair, a watch that probably cost more than Malik's entire building. He had the kind of confidence that made people step aside without a word. "Mr. Davenport," one of the men said quietly. Charles Davenport looked at Malik like he wasn't sure what to say. "You're the boy who saved my daughter," he said finally. His voice was deep, controlled, but there was a tremor of emotion beneath it. "She hasn't stopped talking about you." Malik swallowed, suddenly feeling small under the man's sharp gaze. She okay, sir." "She's fine," Davenport said, his jaw tightening as if the memory still stung. "Thanks to you." He reached into his coat and pulled out a thick white envelope, extending it toward Malik. "Take this. It's a token of our gratitude." Malik looked at it but didn't move. He could feel his grandmother's eyes on him from the doorway. He knew what was inside. Money, more than he had ever seen. It could fix so many things. But something about it didn't feel right. "I can't, sir," he said quietly. Davenport blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me, I can't take money for that," Malik said. His voice shook a little, but he forced himself to keep talking. "I didn't save her for a reward. I just did what anyone should do." There was a long silence. One of the bodyguards shifted, clearly uncomfortable. Davenport stared at the boy, his brow furrowed as if no one had ever said no to him before. "Do you know who I am, son?" he asked, not unkindly, but with that air of someone used to being acknowledged. Malik nodded. "Yes, sir, Emily's dad." The man's lips pressed together. Then, to everyone's surprise, he laughed softly. "You've got spirit. I respect that." He slipped the envelope back into his coat pocket. "You're not like most people I meet." Malik shrugged. "I guess most people don't sell water on the pier." Davenport studied him for a moment longer, his expression unreadable. "You remind me of myself," he said finally, though it sounded like he was talking more to himself than to Malik. "Except I had people looking out for me." He turned to go, but then hesitated. "Emily wants to see you," he said. "She's been asking all morning. Would you come by the hospital? It would mean a lot." Malik looked at his grandmother, who nodded gently. "Go, baby," she said. At the hospital, the white walls gleamed under bright lights, and everything smelled like disinfectant and money. Emily was sitting up in bed, her arm in a sling, her hair braided neatly. When she saw him, her whole face lit up. "You came," she said, grinning. "Dad, this is him. This is Malik." Her father smiled faintly, but Malik could see something had changed in his eyes, a mix of gratitude and guilt, maybe even admiration. Emily reached out and grabbed Malik's hand. "I wanted to thank you," she said softly. "Not just for saving me, for not letting me be a story that ended badly." Malik didn't know what to say. He just nodded, feeling awkward and shy. Her father stepped closer, putting a hand on Malik's shoulder. "You've done more than you realize, son," Davenport said. "You've reminded us that courage doesn't come from money, it comes from heart. That night, when Malik walked home through the quiet streets, the city lights reflecting off the wet pavement, he still didn't feel like a hero. But he felt different. Like maybe, for once, being invisible wasn't his fate. Someone had seen him, really seen him, and that was worth more than any envelope full of money ever could be. A week later, the city had already moved on to new stories, politics, sports, gossip, but Malik's life was only beginning to change. He didn't understand how quickly word spread in places he'd never imagined belonging to. One day he was standing on the pier selling water. The next, people were whispering his name at country clubs and dinner tables. It started with a visit from a lawyer. He showed up at Malik's school, a tall man in a gray suit that looked like it had never known a wrinkle. The principal's eyes were wide when she called Malik to the office. He thought he was in trouble. But the man smiled and introduced himself as Mr. Hayes, representing the Davenport family. Malik, he said, sliding a folder across the desk, Mr. Davenport would like to offer you a scholarship, full tuition, books, supplies, uniforms, transportation. Everything. You'll attend Oak Ridge Academy starting next semester. Malik just stared at him. Oak Ridge, he repeated. That was the kind of school kids from the waterfront didn't even walk past because security would stop them. I can't go there, Mr. Hayes smiled gently. You can. And you will. It's already arranged. When Malik brought the news home, his grandmother sat down heavily, her eyes filling with tears. Oh, baby, she whispered, clutching his hand. Your life's about to be different. But change didn't come easy. The first day he walked through Oak Ridge's iron gates, he felt everyone's eyes on him. His uniform was stiff and new, his shoes squeaked on the polished floor. The halls smelled like expensive perfume and disinfectant. He felt like a visitor in someone else's world. Emily was there too, healthy, smiling, waving from across the courtyard. She looked different in her crisp blazer and shiny shoes, but her eyes were the same. She ran up to him, her laughter echoing through the marble halls. You made it, she said, breathless. Barely, Malik muttered, trying not to stare at the huge chandeliers hanging above them. She grinned. Don't worry, I'll help you survive. These people can be intense. It didn't take long for intense to show its face. During lunch, whispers followed him like shadows. That's the boy who saved Emily. He's from the projects, right? Can you imagine? Some were curious, others cruel, but Malik ignored them. He focused on the only thing that mattered, proving he deserved to be there. Weeks passed, and slowly, he began to find his rhythm. Emily stayed by his side, introducing him to teachers, helping him with homework, defending him when others tried to make jokes. The bond between them grew naturally, not because of the rescue, but because she saw something in him no one else bothered to look for. Then came the day that would change everything again. It was the school's annual charity presentation, a big event where parents, donors, and board members gathered in the auditorium. Malik had been told to attend, but he didn't expect to be part of it. He sat near the back, uncomfortable in his borrowed jacket, watching the stage light up as speakers came and went. Then Emily stepped up to the microphone. Her voice trembled at first. This year, she began, I wanted to dedicate my project to something personal. To someone who reminded me what courage really means. The crowd murmured, curious. Mr. Davenport was in the front row, sitting tall, his expression unreadable. His name is Malik, she continued, turning slightly toward where he sat. A boy who risked his life for someone he didn't even know. He didn't do it for fame or reward. He did it because he couldn't stand by and watch someone fall. And he's sitting right there. Every head turned. Malik froze, his heart pounding. Emily smiled through tears. He's my friend. And he's the reason I'm alive. He taught me that bravery doesn't care about where you come from or how much money you have. It's what's inside you that matters. For a moment, the room was silent, and then came the sound of applause. Slow at first, then louder, filling every corner of the auditorium. Even the teachers stood. Malik wanted to disappear, but Emily motioned for him to come up. He walked to the stage, his steps uncertain, his throat dry. When he reached her side, she grabbed his hand and raised it high. This, she said, her voice breaking but strong, is what real strength looks like. Mr. Davenport stood, clapping. His eyes glistened, and for once, the proud businessman looked simply like a father, one who understood gratitude in its truest form. Afterward, people came to shake Malik's hand, to thank him, to tell him he inspired them. He didn't know what to say. All he could do was smile, shy and overwhelmed. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Malik sat on the steps outside the auditorium. Emily joined him, holding 2 cups of lemonade. "You okay?" she asked softly. He nodded. "Yeah, just. Never thought people would look at me like that." She smiled. "They're just seeing what I saw that day. Someone who didn't think twice about doing the right thing." Malik looked out toward the darkening sky, feeling the quiet hum of the world around him. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel invisible. He felt seen, and deep down, he knew this was just the beginning.